Hello everybody, David Abram here. Welcome back to my channel as always. And for today's video, and the purpose of this video, is going to be focused on MGTOW, but more or less MGTOW as it parallels to one of my favorite comic books, or one of my favorite franchises in the Marvel universe, because I am a big Marvel fan, and I do enjoy a lot of Marvel-based content, from movies to comics and to television shows. And I think MGTOW and the Red Pill is very strongly tied to X-Men, or parallel to X-Men, and in this video I will talk a little bit about that because I am a fan of X-Men, and I've really been a fan of X-Men ever since I was a youngster. Not so much as the comics, though I do, like the comics and have some background knowledge of the comics, but more or less I was a huge fan of the film franchise of X-Men. But I wanted to talk about X-Men in relations to MGTOW because I think in a lot of ways MGTOW is literally a parallel to X-Men, and I will elaborate as to what I mean by that. So really starting off, let's just take a look at overall X-Men, the theme of X-Men, or the basic story. It's the next stage of human evolution, and a lot of people in the Marvel universe call it the mutant phenomenon, and that's much like MGTOW in so many ways, because as I once stated in a comment, I think MGTOW is the next stage of male evolution, but not so much as biological like in X-Men, but in the mindset of men, because we all know in biology that evolution is strongly tied to the organism's environment, and they will adapt accordingly, and that's what MGTOW is. Essentially, we are an adaptation, or are, forming adaptations based off of the environment. We're given the new environment that is anti-male and pro-female, and this is seen through the family court system, the laws, the justice system, the workforce, opportunities, affirmative action, double standards, marriage, divorce, divorce court, child custody, rape culture, and the list just goes on. But just like X-Men, we are the next stage of evolution, not in the body, but of the mind, because the environment has become so hostile towards us as men that we have new adaptations in place to cope with this. And another way, that was the first, but another way I think we're very similar to X-Men, or the X-Men analogy, is the sense that, as I mentioned in another one of my videos of the past, MGTOW's ideologies and, values are not very popular, or our take on things are not very popular, so we're met with a lot of hostility, much like the mutants in X-Men. If you guys remember the film franchise, the very first X-Men from 2000, the Mutant Registration Act, where they wanted mutants to identify themselves, and much of us MGTOWs in the manosphere on YouTube remain and value anatomy. A lot of us don't show our faces, and some of us don't even show our names. And if we do show our names, we won't show our faces, and if we show our faces, we won't show our names, and it varies from MGTOW to MGTOW. But much like the X-Men, or much like mutants in the Marvel universe, when it comes to the X-Men universe, are, met with hostility and prejudice. And a lot of people, when they hear MGTOW in the manosphere, they get the idea that it's a cult, or that it's a woman-hating group. In reality, it's nothing like that at all. It's just men who've decided to reprioritize and educate other men on the dangers with today's modern world. And X-Men with mutants, they're just basically, in a sense, fighting for their fair share of the world. And even though they are met with prejudice and hostility. So I think that's number two in so many ways we parallel with X-Men. And the third one, and I think in a way we parallel with X-Men, is the fact that sometimes in the comment sections below some of Sandman's videos, or Louis Marco, or Neo Unplugged, or a lot of other MGTOW channels, is MGTOW is a phenomenon. It's inevitable. And my views on this is, I think if the current system, you know, rolls on about and doing what it has been doing, then I would say that MGTOW is inevitable, and that within maybe the next few decades, MGTOW will be at an even larger presence than what it is right now. Much like in X-Men, if you remember in X-Men First Class, Sebastian Shaw says to Eric, "We are the future." And I think the same thing kind of applies in some essence to MGTOW. I think as things get worse, as, you know, the government becomes even more anti-male and, you know, anti-liberty, anti-freedom, as it has been going down that road, we will see a rise in more MGTOWs, because, you know, the changes in the environment will become unavoidable. So in a lot of ways, I think that is another way that MGTOW parallels with X-Men. And, you know, one of the common themes with X-Men, which I think also parallels with MGTOW, is in the sense that, you know, a lot of the times mass exoduses of people, or mass groups of people, when it comes to differences or discovering differences, are very fearful, or if not fearful, skeptical and prejudiced, and just overall very at many times very tyrannical towards things that are different. For example, you know, when MGTOWs do say that marriage is a scandal, and that it's a waste of time, and that no man should get married because it isn't in his best interest, with a 50 to 60% divorce rate and things of that nature, were frowned upon, were shamed. It's like the image of a single man versus the image of a married man. In today's blue pill society, the image of a single man is often met with negative connotations, such as he failed in the mating game, or he couldn't, you know, get female attention, or whatever the case may be that the mainstream media paints it. Much is the same thing for X-Men. You know, when they hear mutant, a lot of the times it has a negative connotation, as if something was wrong with them, even though, frankly, it was out of their control, and they had nothing to do with being a mutant, but they're just mutants. And much like even with MGTOW, us arriving at the conclusion of MGTOW and the red pill, I mean, yeah, we did seek out information to get answers on why things were, but ultimately, the facts are the facts, and there's nothing we can do about facts. That there's a 50 to 60% divorce rate, or that 9 times out of 10 child custody goes to women and favors women in family court. There's nothing we can do about that. All we can do is act accordingly to protect ourselves. And I do think MGTOW, as the years roll on, will eventually hit mainstream, but not in the traditional sense. Not like the herbivore men of Japan, but I think it'll hit mainstream subliminally. Like, they'll realize eventually something is up, or something is not as it appears, and then they'll have to actually confront the magnitude of what's really going on. But I don't think that day is here yet, but I think eventually things will get to that point in the not too distant future. But what do you guys think about this? I don't know why, but actually I do, but I think there is a lot of strong ties with MGTOW and X-Men, and I think they are in many ways on parallel to one another. And another note, just like X-Men, mutants are worldwide. They're never exclusive to one location. They're global, much like MGTOW is global and worldwide. And you couldn't look at a MGTOW and know he was a MGTOW. There's no clear indication that a man is a MGTOW. So, you know, and just the same thing kind of goes for X-Men. Yeah, there's some dead giveaways that people are mutants, but some, like Charles Xavier and Eric Lencher and a few other ones, you wouldn't know they were mutants unless you actually saw them display their abilities. And, I mean, the same thing goes with MGTOW. I mean, you wouldn't know just from looking at someone outside of the internet and real world who was MGTOW and who wasn't MGTOW, or who knew about MGTOW and who didn't know about MGTOW, unless they told you, more likely. And in many ways, on that note, I think MGTOW and X-Men are very closely resembling to one another and are somewhat on parallel to one another. But let me know what you guys think. I just thought I would do this video because I do like Marvel. I am a Marvel fan, and I do like X-Men. So, you guys agree, disagree with my analogy? Do you like, you dislike? Do you guys have any different views on this or different perspectives? And if you do, please do feel free to leave them in the comment sections below. Please do subscribe, like, and until the next time, thanks for watching. Cheers.